emailed it because it was just now, like off the cuff.
And we put it on our social media.
Say something. I don't hear that right now, right? I don't hear anything. You don't hear anything? No. I hear it now. I'm gonna pull a plug. You don't hear anything, raise your hands. Still good. That was good.
Raise your hand.
I'm still good. Check. Yeah. Hey. Ah, yeah. Once again, okay. Is this yours?
Okay, that's fine.
All right, cool. Yeah, it was a late start, y'all. The One Night Show. Word up, waiting for y'all to get into the room. We are here in the building. All right. Okay, this meeting is being live streamed. Okay, got it. Yeah. All right. Feeling good today. A lot of good stuff going on. Damn, yep, it's the One Night Show. It's going down. Start to share. I need you to share. Share. The more you share, the more everybody cares. Yep. So it's happening. Get into the room, y'all. Get into the room. The One Night Show is back. And I know that you missed this over the last couple of weeks. Had a couple of times. Saundrea, you in the house? Give me a mic check.
1 2 1 2. 1
Yep.
2 1 2.
Uh-huh.
Y'all can hear me?
Stan Morse.
I'm in the house. 1 2 1 2.
Yes, indeed. Cathy Rojas.
1 2 1 2.
Yeah. There you go. All right. We are in the building.
Yeah.
Wow, it's cloudy today.
How cloudy is it?
Partly cloudy, 75 degrees in New York City.
Wow, Rock Logic weather.
A little bit of traffic going on the Tri-Bowl Bridge heading to the Bronx. A little bit backed up today.
Okay. You say that every week. Do you really know that?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. It's just like that's the problem every Sunday.
Yeah, because normally I'm coming from work.
Gotcha.
So I actually see it.
See it. Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
All right. See, keeping us real, right? We're keeping it real.
Nah,
Yeah.
I'm thorough.
Nah.
I'm thorough.
All right. Okay.
1 2 3 and bang. Yes, y'all. So I want to welcome you guys to the One Night Show. Once again, this is the thing that we do every Sunday from 4 to 7, and it's been a little, it's been a little time. We've been away from the microphones a little bit and all that, so
A little bit.
that's been what's happening. But we in the process of continuously upgrading the studio.
Yeah. Reconstruction.
So we're doing reconstruction. We're gonna redo this thing. We're gonna turn it into a television set. The cameras might look a little sharper to you because we changed the cameras. So that's what's happening.
Right.
My week, a lot to talk about, but can't talk about it today because I got to perform at the Universal Hip Hop Museum.
All right.
Barbecue that they're having on 149th Street and Extension Street. So can't
Bronx.
in the Bronx. That's where I'll be at. And Thursday, I'll be at Washington Houses over there with Claudia and mi gente, mi people. I'm DJing there, giving away book bags and sneakers and free haircuts to the kids before they go to school. So that's kind of what's happening. I'm going to turn this thing over to Saundrea while I swap out with my man, Mike Jones.
All right. So greetings all. My week was busy and blessed. This camera movement. I want to first start out by saying we missed our viewership. We really did. It was in 2 weeks. But we're here and we don't like to take breaks, but every now and then we have to. So we miss you all. So welcome back. I want to say congratulations to the new Lieutenant Governor, Brian Benjamin.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, who is a Harlemite, right? So he was a senator and a New York senator, a state senator to be exact, was running for controller. So just imagine if he won, he wouldn't have been an option. So shout out to him. Give him some mic.
Yes.
Give him some mic. Last week, Tuesday, 8/17, and I'm just going to be brief on this part of it. I was one of the speakers at the press conference in Queens, Bridge with Stan. He will speak more about it. I would say it was just an honor to be with residents, to stand with them as they filed their HP Action lawsuit. HP Action lawsuit is a housing parts lawsuit, and it deals with the issues within individual apartment, the common areas, as well as the grounds of the campus. So residents in Holmes Towers and Isaac Houses filed their HP Action lawsuit on December 13th, 2019. So it's just wonderful to know that residents are taking, their rights, their rights to the court. So, and trying to hold NYCHA accountable. On that evening, August 17, I was actually in Stan's old hood, Lafayette Gardens.
Oh, you went to Lafayette Gardens.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So here to meet up with some of my colleagues from the Resident Leadership Academy, which is a certificate program. This is our second course. It's 4 courses. It's free for NYCHA residents, and it's taught by instructors in CUNY with the School of Labor and Urban Studies. So we are the second cohort, and I must say shout out to my cohort members. Give me some, Mike, because our class is doing so well that our time is cut.
Wow.
So instead of being there 6 to 9, we won't be on Zoom or, in class that long, because we don't need, they figured like, oh, wow, they can write, they can do this, they can do that. And the majority of us all have college. So you just need a high school. So that was a plus. We learned that this week when we went back.
Great.
So Tuesday, so I'm breezing into this week now, last week rather right now. Tuesday, Holmes Towers, Holmes Towers and Queensbridge had their resident council, resident council or resident association nominees. That they had their elections. I'm just babbling it, but they had their elections for their association. And I don't know the outcome. Maybe Stan can speak about the outcome for Queensbridge, but I'll say for Holmes, they have to redo because there was a tie for president, and for sergeant at arms, one person was off the ballot, so they couldn't even count that. So those two elections will be done next month, which is right around the corner.
Right.
But it's more to the end. So I'm gonna jump into Wednesday. We had a huge community event with Council Member Ben Kalos. The Holmes Isaac Coalition co-sponsored it, the Isaac Center and other entities. We distribute backpacks, PPE, contact tracing was there from the city. There was COVID testing being done on site. We had the mammogram van out there. It was a really huge event. So that's that. One of the Isaac Houses building in which I live in, we have had an elevator outage for over a week since last Saturday. So yesterday I had to sit down out in the lobby. I had to put a bag out, and I sat on the stairs, which I never did. I had on a dress and everything because we actually distribute PPE and food yesterday.
Right.
So the elevators were out. Both of them were out. So I'm calling all elected officials, the community board. I mean, I'm reaching out to people, and it was just crazy. So it was out for about 2 hours. A resident actually got the elevator going. People were trying, but this resident got it going. And with that said, fire department came out because I was down there with a wheelchair resident, a resident that had a walker, and a resident with a cane, and other residents. It was just disheartening just to see that. And lastly, they said we need a specialist. So we don't know what that means. So one elevator is out. PE1 will be out until they get someone to come in. And lastly, today makes day number 427 at UES for BLM, the vigil at Carl Schutz Park.
All right.
And
give us some for that.
A shout out to my fellow colleagues, my fellow organizers. So that's it. You want to say a little something, Mike, since you here before we jump into Stan?
Oh,
how was your week?
Well, my
or
week
weeks?
was smooth. My week
always
smooth. That's smooth, Mike. Smooth money, Mike.
We had a Ravenswood back to school event on a Friday.
Okay, nice.
We had a little bouncy houses.
Nice.
Had some food. We was out in the rain.
Yeah, we got wet,
I mean,
soaked.
Got wet.
Soaked?
I was out there with them.
Right?
Terrible.
When I say we was dripping, we was dripping.
Yeah.
And it's me and Rock still doing these schools.
Okay.
That's great.
We in the Bronx, we're gonna do much more than we do for boys and girls. But
okay.
it's gonna be there. It's gonna be nice. So
that's big.
More schools as well. And I'm not gonna give all the time.
And you get to say something. No, we want to hear about your week, brother.
So smooth. So
I know he's so smooth that he's gentle and smooth.
Right. All of that.
All right.
Yeah. So I want to definitely follow up on what Saundrea was talking about.
Yes.
We had an incredible press conference. You know, I want to give a big shout out to Queens Legal Services, Robert
Give
Sanderman,
him some.
and the whole group there, Elizabeth, and you know, they got the media to come. And usually when we have these press conferences, nobody shows up. The press don't show up. But this time, Channel 5 was there, Channel 4, Channel 11. You know, so it was a nice time. We getting used to these new cameras, so I'm trying to figure out my position here.
Right, stay there.
You know, some good.
Because you might have to move over if you're blocking us.
Right. And so back to the lawsuit. So that's the first of many. I want to give a big shout out to the 12 residents in Queensbridge who stood up and against possible retaliation, because we know that people get retaliated against when they speak up. Against whatever NYCHA may throw, these folks stood up and said, you know, we had enough. And so we filed the lawsuit, and that's the first of many. We're going to be filing in Ravenswood next. We will be filing in Astoria houses as well, and also Woodside. And I'm hoping that other developments take heed, you know, and do the same thing. We're following after Homes Eyes. You guys did it before, but we got to hold NYCHA accountable. And one of the tools that we have is the courts, you know, so don't think that you can't do it. You can do it as a group.
Right.
You can't really do it individually now. I think they kind of put that on hold for individuals to do HPI.
You can, but Just Fix can't pay for it. So you still can do it. Yeah.
Okay, great. So individuals, you can do this too. You know, we can't just sit back and deal with lack of repairs, lack of respect, and all the rest of that.
But it is more powerful collectively.
Right, collectively, and you feel like you're part of something. Right. So we feel like there's a great move that these residents did.
Right.
We're going to support them throughout the process. We know it's not going to be an easy fight.
Right.
It's not going to bring immediate solutions. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But 9 times out of 10, we're going to have to be in this fight for a while, just like you guys have been.
Almost
you know,
2 years.
But it's a start, you know. And tomorrow, Tuesday, we'll be back in Ravenswood. We're gonna have a community meeting
outside.
Outside.
Nice.
And I'm just so happy to see the word against the blueprint spreading throughout that community. You know, a lot of folks, when we first started having these meetings, some of them didn't even know who Greg West was,
right? Or
didn't know what the blueprint is. You know, and it's such a critical time, because if we don't win this fight, you know, it's very quite possible. I want to say this again: the public housing itself can be done, you know, within a few months from now, early into next year, when the state assembly comes back to actually vote on it. You know, so for those living in NYCHA, if you don't know about the blueprint, please find out as much as you can. Tune into our show to find out as well. You know, but what it can really mean is in the public housing. We lost 1/3 of NYCHA through the RAD program. It may be more than that, because we do understand that they're picking off some buildings individually. You know? So we already lost 1/3. You know, so this is not a rumor. Right. Or this is not something that we've been talking about. I know since a kid, when I grew up in NYCHA, I've been hearing this 40 years ago, that NYCHA would be privatized and so forth, you know. But I want folks to really understand it's not a rumor. No, it's happening. It's happening. And we need to really fight like it's the last thing. As the public housing goes, there is no affordable housing. That's right. Only true affordable housing. So let me ask you, Stan, are we going to do your intro on your guest, or you want to I'm going to swing real quick. Okay. We have, so hold off. Okay. Yeah, we got a special guest. I'm so excited that she's here. But I have a Ravenswood resident. We were planning to show the video. Unfortunately, we couldn't do that, you know, but I guess when we hear so many stories, you know, I know you hear stories on Saundrea, and I know you hear him, Cathy, from residents, you know, but this particular story sort of touched me more than others. So I'm gonna let Latasha tell the story, and then maybe Latasha pose a question to our candidate for mayor here to see what she might do to resolve an issue such as this. So Latasha, can you hear us? Is your mic up? Are you there?
Yes, you can hear me now. Hello?
I think she may be on mute.
Are you on mute?
Hello?
Doesn't look like she's on mute. Check your sound there.
I'm on.
All right. I'm not sure if she's
Hello? Can you hear me?
In the studio.
No, but she's on. Okay, go ahead. Say something. The thing is on you.
You can hear me? You can hear me?
Speak.
I'm trying.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, good.
Okay.
You can hear me now?
Yeah, you hear. Okay. So I just want to introduce Latasha. I don't know if you heard what I said earlier, but you know, you told me a story about your grandmother. It really touched me. So we want to bring some light to it. So we want to give you time to speak to the audience and tell a little bit about what's happening. Then you could pose a question to our mayoral candidate as to what she might do to resolve an issue like this. So go on, Latasha.
Okay, yes. My name is Latasha again. My grandmother, she's 88 years old. My aunt, she's 66 years old. They're both senior citizens. My aunt, she cares for my grandmother. She's her caregiver. My grandmother has been bedridden for 2 years. She needs a wheelchair.
Mhm.
My aunt put in for a transfer for them to get senior citizen into a senior citizen building, which was Colony Lighthouse Tower.
Okay.
No one has called them or anything yet. My grandmother cannot go up and down the steps. She's on the 4th floor. It takes 2 people to get her up and down. I called Baisley Projects because my grandmother lives in Jamaica Houses.
Yeah.
I called Baisley Projects to find out where exactly my grandmother and my aunt was at on the waiting list, being that the medical condition has gotten worse. My grandmother also has Alzheimer's. They told me that they're on the waiting list and they just hung up the phone on me.
Wow.
So nothing is being done. Basically, NYCHA is neglecting my grandmother. She's being abused. She's like a prisoner in her own home because she can't go up and down the steps.
Right. Yeah.
They need a transfer.
Yeah.
Now,
Emergency
between me
transfer.
and you, when you first apply for housing, they tell you on the application, if your situation changes, to let them know.
Right.
So who do we let know her situation has changed? That way she can be transferred. What are they doing? Waiting for my grandmother to pass away? It isn't right. And then the living conditions are horrible. I sent the videos to Stan. My grandmother worked for the city for 44 years. She does not deserve to be treated like this. What can I do?
Wow. Well, Latasha, we wanted you to get that story out. We're gonna get you back on.
Yeah,
and we want to show that video because the video, I mean, our grandma was on the video, and it was touching. And nobody at the later years of their life should be living like that. It's just inhumane, And it seems to me like they are waiting for her to pass away. We just resolve the issue that way, which is really incredible. So Latasha, we're gonna fight back. This is the first step. This show gets viewed by a whole lot of people, a whole lot of folks watch it.
NYCHA watches it.
And NYCHA watches it as well. So they're being told to their face, in essence, what the story is. And then we're gonna pick back up and really bring this to the light even more. So I want to thank you for coming on.
Yes, thank you.
We're gonna show that video and have you come on again,
right?
To do actually an update, as to what has happened since you made this more public. And then we're gonna fight. We have mayoral candidate here who who was somebody that I know very well, organized with. So Tasha, thanks for tuning in. We're gonna get some more light to this in a few.
And I'll work on booking you. We'll work on a Sunday that works for you. Okay. Stan is going to put you in touch with me and I'm going to book you. I'm going to bring you back on. You'll be able to come on either virtually or in person, like Cathy sitting in here. So you can sit in the studio with us or you can just shoot from home as well. Okay.
And also if your grandmother or your aunt want to come on as well, then I think that'd be great virtually. So everybody can get the full essence of the story.
Thank you. Thank you for tuning in and joining us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
So I want to swing it over to somebody I know personally, Saundrea, you work with as well. A warrior out here in the fields. When I was as an organizer for Just a Voice, she actually knocked on doors with me in Queensbridge. So I've seen her dedication before she was a candidate as somebody that's just a fighter in our community, and I'm very proud to announce, unless you want to add anything to your introduction.
I just want to say it's great to have you here. I covered for One NYCHA your launch in Spanish Harlem. So on the One NYCHA page. So welcome. Yeah.
All right. Give us some. This is mayoral candidate, independent mayoral candidate, independent.
What about you know about
candidate,
that?
Cathy Rojas. She's going to talk about her campaign and everything that's going on. So go on, Cathy.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I mean, even though I'm hearing this story that's really, truly terrible, I'm not surprised by it. And the reason for that is because I've been an organizer in NYCHA, right? So I've been an organizer and I've been knocking on doors and I've been talking to residents in NYCHA, and inaccessibility to people that are differently abled is nothing new in NYCHA, right? And then on top of that, where it's not only about the elevator, it's about the mold, the asbestos, the overall living conditions of NYCHA are truly criminal. But the reason why they're so criminal is because they want to make it so impossible for people to live there, so much so that they can convince them to privatize it. Right. And that's what we're seeing now. Now, what my campaign is offering as a solution is that we have to see that New York City is the city with the most amount of millionaires and billionaires in the entire country.
Talk about it.
So how is it so that our city that is so rich, one of the richest cities in the world, doesn't have enough to offer fair and proper housing to people like her grandmother, who was a city worker for 40 years, right? And the reason for that is that we see that the rich continue to make millions and billions off our backs, right? We saw that during COVID-19, when Jeff Bezos made multi-billions throughout COVID-19, and his workers were dying in the warehouses, right? So these millionaires and billionaires say, oh, we're self-made. It's like, no, honey, you're not self-made. You're made off our work.
Literally
you're made off our exploitation. You're made off our lives. So what we're saying is it's time to pay for them.
Right.
It's time for them to pay an equal share of taxes for the amount of labor that they've used from us. And we want to use those taxes to fully fund NYCHA, but not only to fully fund, and that means to fully fund the repairs, the infrastructure, but we also want to expand NYCHA, and we want to repeal the Fair Cloth Act that says that NYCHA can be expanded. But a lot of people don't know that NYCHA residents have to pay 30% of their income to rent. It's not free housing. They have to pay 30%, but it's the only true affordable housing in New York City.
100.
You know, like I got accepted for one of those luxury lottery apartments in Jamaica, Queens. And when I go to see it, it's like a studio, and they're like, "Oh, it's $2,000."
Right.
I'm like, how is that affordable? I mean, I can't afford that. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing a lot of luxury apartments being built, a lot of lottery apartments, but none of that is affordable. So the other thing that we are proposing is to make New York City a rent control city. And the way that we define that is that tenants wouldn't have to pay more than 20% of their income. So that's even better than NYCHA, and NYCHA would also have to match that. And that way we wouldn't only have to solely depend on NYCHA in order to be the only true affordable housing, but everything would become affordable housing, right? And we want to completely eradicate homelessness. And people are like, well, that's impossible. But actually, there's more vacant apartments than there are homeless people in New York City. In New York City,
luxury buildings.
And that they're just vacant, waiting to be like for profit to be made off.
The tax write-off.
And the thing is that when we compare politicians, right, like Eric Adams, all of the funding that he's receiving, or most of it, and he spent, I think it's about $15 million in his campaign. A lot of it is coming from real estate developers, right? People who stand to profit off gentrification, off the privatization of NYCHA, off the displacement of working class people from their communities. And then when he wins, so he says he's for the people, but he's taking money from these real estate developers who is gonna do everything in their best interest, right? So that's why I'm running under an independent party, the Party for Socialism and Liberation, that believes in putting the interests of working class people first. And that's why we're saying we want a city that's truly affordable and that is going to take these vacant apartments, these 240,000 vacant apartments, and is going to give them to the 130,000 families that are in shelters right now, where we could literally eradicate homelessness within a few months. So what we really want to show in this with this campaign is that it's possible to meet all of the needs of working class people in New York City, but politicians choose to put the interests of the wealthy instead of our interests. But at the end of the day, it's us who are paying taxes, right? Studies are now have now come out that even show that undocumented people are paying more taxes than the rich of New York City.
People don't even know they pay taxes.
Exactly. So then at the end of the day, we have to say, this is our money you're using. You're using our tax dollars. And we want to take that money back and use it for our interest. And that's what our campaign is all about.
Awesome. Let me just address, thanks for that.
Right.
Let me just address the chat room real quick and say hello to our viewership. We have Kim Tyree in there, the room. We have Anita Patterson. We have Kenneth Johnson. Thank you for watching. We have, let's see who else. Annette Jones is watching. Helen Williams is watching. That's it. And people are commenting, you know, what is the definition of for affordable? It's for Kimbrough, but we kind of spelled that out. She said,
we put it as 20% of tenant's income. So affordable would be whatever a tenant, if you're making $50,000 a year, your rent can't be more than $833 a month. And
that's understandable. So you're saying 20%. So with that said, with the 20, are you moving the cameras back and forth, bro? I gotta call you out. You on the job, like he's sitting here listening, and you got to move it back and forth. So, but and then you can bring it back. You know what you're doing. When you're saying the 20%, with that said, are you going to would you bring NYCHA down? And the second part to the question is, I know we're speaking about the affordability for us to live in the city, but the AMI is also a problem too, where it's based at. Can you speak about that? Because it's, based on Westchester County and stuff like that. So, and it doesn't fit their incomes, and our incomes as a whole is not the same. So how do we work on fixing that so the AMI, area medium income, that's what it means, would fit for the people that, are living here?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, NYCHA would have to match that, because given they would live under New York City, they would automatically have to go under that rent control law. In terms of the AMI, we did have this conversation when we were writing the platform, right? That if we did AMI of like New York City as a whole, it wouldn't be fair. So then what we said was that it would be based on the tenant's income as opposed to the AMI of a certain community, because we have different you could even go like uptown where the Upper East Side and then East Harlem that are like very close to each other. The incomes could vary greatly. So then we wanted it to be based on the tenant's income itself instead of that community. Correct.
And you won't be factoring in upstate.
No.
In
that community.
So it'll be a little more confined,
a
confined AMI, maybe, right?
So actually real representation of the income of a community, as opposed to,
because it says area medium income, but it's broad. It's very broad.
You expand that area way too far.
Okay.
So now, can you talk about the importance of running as an independent? We had the Democrats, we had the Republicans. Well, I still call it Democrats.
You call
Democrats.
They like their cats, boy. They be doing their things. I'm a demo though.
And in many ways, they have not, in my opinion, have not been really representative of the concerns of everyday people. So can you speak on why is it so important that your campaign is independent?
Well, I mean, I think as someone that lived through in New York City throughout COVID-19, lived in Elmhurst, that was the epicenter of the epicenter. We saw, I saw, it's an immigrant community. I saw how immigrants were not receiving any aid, right? And then on top of that, housing was an issue before the pandemic. And therefore, a lot of the reason why, the COVID contraction rates were so high in that community was because it was so expensive to live there that people had to, we had families of 8 living in 1 bedroom. Then they couldn't take off work, right? Because they weren't able to get unemployment. They weren't able to get none of the stimulus checks. So then boom, they have to go to work. Now, if you are living in a room with 8 people and 2 of those people are going to work, if they come back with COVID, everybody in that room gets it. Then the other rooms that are in that apartment get it. And then we have a whole house with tons of people in it with COVID. And then if we look at the hospital situation in the area, right? The only hospital that was public in that area is Elmhurst Hospital. Now, what happened? That there was so many. So when you're an immigrant you need to go to public hospitals because you don't have health insurance. And then public hospitals, what they do is they give you a payment plan based on your income. So the only hospital that'll work with you is a public hospital. So what happened? There was too many people going to Elmer's Hospital, and so much so that they had more people than they can actually attend. So what did that cause? That caused for me to go outside, walk 2 blocks, and see trucks, refrigerated trucks be filled with the bodies of my neighbors, of acquaintances, of the parents of my students, of people in our community that were dying because of government neglect, right? Because hospitals had been shutting down for 9 years. It would have been possible for New York City to pass aid for undocumented people. It would have been possible for them to cancel rents and mortgages so that people wouldn't have to worry about making ends meet and can stay home in quarantine, right? But they didn't do that. They chose not to do that. Why? Because they wanted at least a few people to go to work so that people like Jeff Bezos could continue to make their billions at the expense of the lives of our community. And I said, you know what? I want to run as an independent with the Party for Socialism and Liberation, that I know is a party that has dedicated over a decade of their time to truly representing the interests of working class people.
Shout out to PSL.
Yes, PSL.
And that hasn't faltered.
So I have a question. You gave him something, right? PSL. Okay. I thought I didn't hear. I have a question because just to piggyback on something you mentioned about the private hospital. So I'm not clear. So maybe you need to clear this up for me. I was under the assumption, and if I'm wrong, that's fine, that no hospital can refuse to treat someone. The private hospitals are actually refusing to treat people, or what is it?
No. They don't refuse, but they bill you after.
Right. Okay.
So then if you go to a public hospital, what they do is they have like a payment plan based on your income. If you go to a private hospital, I mean, I'm not saying to do this, but what can have been done, not saying to do it, is giving a fake name. Because if you give your real name, you're gonna get billed for that. And an emergency room could cost you upwards of $10,000. You know what I mean? So then people have to make that decision, like, oh my God, am I gonna have to be? And that has serious repercussions for someone that's an immigrant. You know what I mean? So then they have to choose.
Okay, so I just wanted clarity because it didn't sound like that, but that you made it clear. So
and for anybody else, and there's also a lot of people that aren't immigrants but are also uninsured, right? And then for them as well, they would have to, or it would be much better for them to go to a public hospital because they'll give them a payment plan that works with their,
or help them apply for Medicaid or something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that won't be in the ER though, so they would have to come back.
Right.
So yeah, okay. Okay.
Let me throw a question out. So I know PSL, that's socialist, right? So how, I know folks sometimes give the term, make it a negative term. Why is it not a negative term? And are you finding that people are receptive, to that word? I know they're going to use that against
definitely. I mean, I grew up in New York City public schools. My teachers were predominantly white, and, they taught me that socialism meant dictatorship. And it wasn't until I went to college and studied political science, I realized that socialism was an economic system and dictatorship is a political one. And that socialism could be of a system that is very democratic or one that's very dictatorial, and that it looks very different in different places. I think in essence, though, what socialism is to put the interests of working class people in the forefront of all decision, economic and political decisions, and not put the interests of the rich. The way that capitalism works is that you have to put the interest of profit of the rich in the forefront. And there's the theory of trickle down economics that little bit of profit will trickle down and everybody will get their piece. As working class people in the US, I think for a lot of us, we know that that's a fallacy. And that's why, I chose to become a socialist in college about 10 years ago. And that's something that I'm still fighting for today. Okay,
awesome. So it's funny you saying that because I come from law enforcement. I'm medically retired. I supervise payroll for NYPD. But I also push back against, injustices. So I remember one of my former colleagues asked me, he said, because I guess he was seeing how I was on social media about different things. And he was like, are you a socialist? And but it's like, if you're about humanity, I think we all are, right?
Absolutely.
But I have a question from Kim Tyree. She's putting quite a bit of things in there, but I'm just going to ask this one. What are your views on defunding the police? How did that get set up?
I know you.
How did that get set up? Right.
I know you was going to ask that. Yeah.
Well, this is Kim.
Right. Okay.
Kim
cool.
asking,
okay. Cool.
The police has right now $11 billion in funding. Studies have come out to show that they only solve 2% of major crime. This is over a 10-year study. And I think that we all. And then let me just break down policing. What does policing do? Right. Most of the crimes that police are arresting people for nonviolent or small infractions, right? What we call poverty crimes, stealing, shoplifting, all these things that could be solved if the basic needs of our people were met, right? But let's say people are getting criminalized, when weed was illegal because they were selling weed, right? So then boom, they're going to jail. And I've seen this, right? As a high school teacher, I've seen kids that go to jail at very young ages to juvie, maybe 15, 16 years old for a crime that they may have committed. And then what happens to them in there? When they're in there, they basically have to, survive. They're not fully developed as people. They're easily influenced. They have been taught through this patriarchal society that in order to be a man, they need to be beating up other men or to show that they're the alpha man physically, right? So what does that lead to? Many times that leads to them joining a gang, becoming more violent, plus all the traumatic experiences that they endure in jail. Boom, they come out. Now, when they come out, they don't have access to jobs the way they used to. They don't have access to financial aid to go to college. They don't have access to housing. We know that in NYCHA, they're actually barred from living in NYCHA. Right. And it basically, and then there's just the general stigma and then the actual trauma that they now have to deal with, right? So they're kind of barred from everything. So a lot of times that leads people to fall right back into things that maybe they shouldn't do, right? And then what happens? Maybe they have a kid throughout the time that they're out, but a lot of times when people are coming out, they go back in, right? Boom, now they go back in, they've left a kid without a father, a single mother household, a family without support, a community without a vote. And then we completely break down the community. And we see this with statistics, right? If we look at any community that has been hyper-policed, do we actually see criminality dwindling? No, we don't. What we see is broken communities. So what we are saying is we want safe communities. Right. And in order to have safe communities, we need to give our communities the resources they need to thrive. That means housing, education, healthcare, food, all of these things. So how can we do that without funding? So what we want to do is reallocate $6 billion of funding to the needs of our community and to violence intervention programs. Like Elite Learners is one that we have actually interviewed in my live Combos con Cathy. And the violence intervention programs, they are mentorship programs where people who have actually come out many times of prison and are re-entering society, they are trained to be mentors to youth, to have them follow the right path. There are people that are already respected in the community. It also allows them to find a job doing something that is beneficial for the community. And then they basically also teach kids conflict resolution, help them find jobs. And they've gone as far as walking kids home from high schools if they know they have a problem with a kid in another high school, right? They walk both of them home. Then they make appointments with both of their family members, like the entire families, to create conflict resolution. And we've seen very high success rates in 2017. These crisis intervention programs in the South Bronx, in the blocks that they did their work in, actually had a reduction of 63% in shootings. Now, 63% is a lot better than 2%. Oh, yeah. So what we're saying is let's fund what works and let's fund empowerment and transformation of our communities instead of the criminalization of our communities. So
well, that's a big difference from Eric Adams, who's a former cop. So I think you definitely separated yourself from him with your answer. I think that's a big separation.
So that segue into, as the mayor, you would have control over the city jails, not the state jails. So Department of Corrections, City Department of Corrections. So we know with corrections, there They're not coming with the COs are not coming to work. They're doing doubles and triple shifts, which is massive overtime. There's also abuse and all of that. So there's a lot of corruption, of course, in there, abuse of authority, but it's also a money generator as well, because there's not enough COs if needed. I know they're trying to close Rikers down. I was part of the crew, which was no new jails against, against the new jails. But what would be maybe a solution for you as a mayor to tackle the city jail issues, the abuse in the jails, the massive overtime that they're making? Because if their salary is maybe $80,000 a year, with the overtime, they're making like $150,000 to $200,000. Like they're making good money, because I know with since 2020, since George Floyd death, with all the overtime for cops, the average cop that would have never been making six figures, they all made six figures easily.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was actually part of the No New Jails movement as well, and was advocating and continue to advocate for the closure of Rikers without building new jails. I think that when we look at Rikers, we need to look at who's in there for violent crime and who's actually waiting just to pay bail, right? And we actually want to cancel a cash bail, right? Because we see it as a way to kind of to put people in jail simply because they're poor, right? People are supposed to be innocent until proven guilty.
Definitely.
And what's happening is that they're being sent to jail, and if they don't have the bail money, they have to stay there, or they have to get the bond, but you lose the bond. You don't get the bond back. So you're basically paying for something that you will many times not be guilty for, But we think that there's a lot of people in jail that do not need to be in jail, right? We know that most people are there for nonviolent crimes. We think those people need to go home, people that are there for poverty crimes, and that we need to fund resources in our communities, rehabilitation centers. We know that Rikers is one of the biggest mental health facilities in New York City, right? We need to be funding true mental health facilities that aren't criminalization centers, that aren't jails. We need to be funding education, after school programs, mentorship programs. And at the end of the day, we need to reimagine the way we look at jails, right? Because at the end of the day, it's not just about punishment, but it's about rehabilitating that individual in order for them to come back into society and be a productive member of their community. So we need to really look at how jails are working and why it's so abusive, right? I mean, I've watched, and if you watch, like I watch, series of like Swiss series, and they talk about, there was like this one that I was watching of a mass shooting, and that's terrible, right? But in the movie, they show them going to like one of the worst jails, and it's beautiful. It looked like my college dorm room, and they had all of these resources. They showed COs hugging them and their daily appointments with the therapist. And it is, we have to think long term.
Right.
We can't just be reactionary and be like, oh, well, they stole this and therefore they need to be punished. It's like, no, but how are we going to actually create a society that's healed, right? And we need to provide healing in these centers. So that's what I think our point of.
Because I think we all know bail reform was good, and we also had the fear mongering regarding bail reform from people. So sadly, but when we look at the jails also, so we're speaking of right now jails because her jurisdiction would not be upstate, like state prisons. So we're speaking of, but on the spectrum of both, education is very key. Getting there, if they don't have a GED, getting their GED. My sister-in-law used to teach in the prisons as well, the city jails, but just to be able to do that, learn some type of trade in the jails, because they're there to help. Maybe they can't make bail and not getting bail, them getting education. Because I think it was, I don't know, might have been Pataki, somebody had took it out of the state prisons in the past, for them to get degrees, but it's back, they're able to get the degrees, and that's very important to come out. But one thing I would like to, and it goes for the state prisons because they really make and they, and the core craft and all other things that they build, desk and, they make scrubs, they make the sanitizer. Yeah. It's not just license plates, but they do work also in city jails also. My whole thing is I would like them to see, and hopefully you can work on it and other people can work on it, the pay they get, give them at least minimum wage.
Right.
Because when you look at the families that are separated, so if a husband or a boyfriend or your baby daddy, however you want to call him, is locked up, you're helping with his commissary, right?
Right.
Families are sending, but if he's making he or she who's ever in there is making a little decent money, you don't have to send them any money.
Right.
So I think that should definitely be wage, because that's slave those are slave.
Yeah, well,
slave labor.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I think that's a really important point, because if we look at the history of America, right, we know that after the 13th Amendment, when they said that slavery is illegal, it said slavery is illegal except as a punishment for crime, right?
That's
so what did that mean? They started creating black codes, and these laws that only apply to black and brown people in order to get them in jail so that they could be slaves again, right?
Wow.
And weed, if we look at, and there's still black codes, right? Like the criminalization of weed, it was about 90%. I mean, it changed every year, but it was about 90% of people that were arrested for weed in New York City were black and brown, even though all study shows that people across races use and sell weed at the same amount.
And everything else.
But they were only using that law to stop black and brown people.
Yeah.
And then when they go to jail, what happens? They get jobs with corporations. So basically the jails, the prisons sell their labor to Victoria's Secret, Whole Foods, Johnson & Johnson, and they sell their labor to these companies, and they pay the city something, and they pay the workers maybe 24 cents a day, 24 cents an hour. I mean, it varies by wherever you are in the United States.
Yeah.
But it is really a true, it is literally a different way of saying slavery in the United States.
Yeah.
But it is a form that slavery has been extended, and it's something that needs to end. If people are working in prison, they need to be paid the minimum wage of that state.
Give us some, because that's what I'm saying.
And
that's my fight. Yeah.
And they need to be able to vote.
Yeah.
We need to give them back their ability to vote, right? When we look at even the Electoral College, right? Why was the Electoral College created? So that northern cities didn't have as much power, and southern cities, they had the 3/5 compromise, right? Where a person of color, a black person, was only considered 3/5 of a person, right? But then why did they give them even 3/5? Because they wanted them to count in part of the population, so they could have more representatives in the Electoral College. And this is exactly what they're doing in prisons, where they're not actually counting these prisoners, like they're counting them as part of the population.
Of course.
So then they get more people in the Electoral College, in the census, in the assembly, all of these things, but they're not allowed to vote.
Right.
So it's a way of continuing the marginalization of black and brown people in the United States, and we need to end that.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, Stan, this last thing, and I'll let you know, because everything is just segueing into my thoughts. So when you mentioned voting, right? So I understand the part of upstate you sentenced, so that you lost that right. We can fight for that. But the ones that are in city jail that are not convicted, they're not voting. They don't have the right to vote, and their families are not counting them on their census when they should. You know what I mean? Because they're not upstate. But how could you, as the mayor, make sure that the people in Rikers and other facilities, city jails, what is it? The Tombs, all these different, different boroughs have them, the jails. How can you work on making sure they can vote? That's very important.
Yeah, I mean, I would only have jurisdiction over New York City.
That's what I'm saying.
But that is part of our plan to give New York City, anyone who's in jail should have the right to vote. And I think that people are like, oh, well, if they committed a crime, then they don't know how to make sound decisions. But if you committed a crime, then you're a perfect example. You know exactly what is not working in this society that makes people do things that maybe they shouldn't, right? So then you would know who to vote for to create a system that is going to make sure that everybody excels. So we need that voice in politics, and we believe in giving people in jails the right to vote.
And to be clear, those that are in jail, like Rikers and stuff are not sentenced.
Mhm.
So they still should be able to vote.
They're innocent.
Now there's a small percentage that are still there doing time, right? If they got a really low sentence, they don't send them upstate. But other than that, if they're not convicted, they should be able to vote. I'm sorry, go.
Oh, no, I was disagreeing. That was the most stupid thing I've ever heard, to be honest.
Yeah.
Somebody say that you can't, I mean, if you committed a crime, you're not a sound decision to vote. If you're in a city jail, you have to prove that they committed that crime. I mean, that's the reason why they're going
Due process. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And it's not completed yet. So that's something to fight for. They're saying, I know I kept jumping in. It was just, you know where I'm at, right? So everything was just laying out. But yes,
I know the whole issue of schools and the virus is coming. We were talking about that before. And as a parent, I have my concerns about sending my kid back. So can you talk about what you think the best policy should be as we enter into the school year, which is starting right now, right around the corner, as this Delta variant is raging. So what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, honestly, we need to take away mayoral control of the Department of Education. And the reason for that is...
Give us something.
That's big.
Yeah.
And I think COVID-19 has shown us why. Because if the mayor were to have really listened to teachers, to parents, to students, and to what they wanted, we wouldn't have had this continual back and forth.
Right.
Literally now, de Blasio is like, you know what? Maybe we should have a remote option. I'm like, bro, we're opening in 2 weeks. Why are you like, we've been telling you this since COVID-19 started. Right. We need a remote option. We need a remote option at all times. Why? Because when I was teaching, and I was an in-person teacher, so I went in through COVID-19, we only had about 10 to 15 students in the class. We were getting shut down every other week. You know, schools were getting shut down, classrooms were getting shut down, students were being sent home. And this is with 10 to 15 students. Now we're looking at classrooms with 30 students, 25 students. How is it possible that before we were only shutting down, we were shutting down maybe twice a month, and now we're not going to shut down? So then what happens when we shut down? Kids are going to be left without any instruction whatsoever. They're not going to be learning at all, right? But then we also have students that are immune compromised, right? There is no mandate on vaccinations for students. So, and like, there's really no way. They're like, oh, now they changed it to 3 feet, that you have to be 3 feet socially distant.
Oh my goodness.
It's not 6 feet anymore.
Wow.
But there's really no way. I mean, honestly, I went in the building, students were like hugging each other outside. You know, they had girlfriends and boyfriends in other classrooms. They literally have one period, one whole hour where they take off their mask. They're in the same room and they're all eating together. I mean, it's literally impossible.
It's an incubator about to breathe.
Exactly. So then if we have students that are immunocompromised or have family members at home that are immunocompromised, they should have the choice to learn remotely to save their lives. And that's something that we've been telling de Blasio forever, that the UFT, our union, has been telling, that parent groups have been asking for, and he just continues to make decisions without us, very undemocratically. And then he takes steps back, and then he does what we had said in the beginning, except he does it out of nowhere, and then parents have to find daycare, they have to quit their jobs. It just creates so much stress. So I think they definitely have to provide a remote option. It's something that they're now open to for kids that are, are medically fragile, is what they said. I don't know how they're going to measure that.
Wow. Emily Johnson says no distancing can be done. Thanks for tuning in, Emily. Yeah. I'm baffled with some parents. I mean, I have 2 adult kids, so I'm not in the mix of this, but I have 2 grands. I'm a grandma. But with that said, like, I hear both sides, like, oh, my kids are going to school. And I'm like, okay, you just want your kids out the house. You know, you just want your kids out the house. That's it.
Right.
You know, are you really concerned with their safety? You know, because if there was something that came out, it's been on CNN, that a teacher came in that wasn't vaccinated and taught the kids, I don't know what state it was in, and she took her mask off to read and infected half of class.
Oh my God.
Right.
So, you know.
I mean, as a parent, it is a tough issue. You know, as I do know, a lot of kids, when they're learning, my own daughter struggled with the remote learning. But I guess at the end of the day, you rather have them alive, right? Rather than dead, you know, so they got to fix this, because it's incredibly frustrating as a parent, not knowing really what's going to happen. It's right around the corner. and we still seem to be very uncertain about it.
Well, and what we're saying is because personally, I prefer to go in person. I don't want to be home, and I'm vaccinated.
Right.
So I don't live with anybody that's immunocompromised.
Right.
I'm not immunocompromised. I want to go to school.
Right.
But I think that there should be still the choice,
The option,
right?
yeah,
There should be the option.
definitely.
For those that feel like me, for those parents that don't want the kids in the house. And I don't think it's good. Honestly, I don't think it's good for those kids to be in the house. I'm sure they also want to get away. And,
Right.
and I've talked to students that don't have the best living situation. And they're like, no, I need to go back to school.
Right.
And for those students, it's, come back. And there's a lot of teachers like me, that are going to be there, but there still needs to be an option for remote students, for students that want to.
And there's less kids.
Remote.
It's less kids that you would have
exactly.
to
And
worry
less,
about.
right.
Yeah.
There would be less contact.
Right.
It would just be safer for everyone.
Because even last year, right, when it was mixed and everybody didn't have the vaccine.
Right.
Right. So that was really like a Russian roulette type thing with the virus. Right. Wow. It's just baffling. And I think this mayor now, I think he has his gloves off because, him and Cuomo had the worst relationship. It was literally non-existent. So now it's like, he can say and do what he wants. And we got to see if she's going to, step on him on some things.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, I guess you're gonna be in that situation soon. But one thing I do want to point out is going back to independent politics. You know how the media doesn't cover. Have you been getting any media coverage? I know during the primaries, they're everywhere. They follow the mayoral candidates all around. Wherever they go, 4 or 5 of them are there. And I just think it's totally unfair. When you're running as an independent, and also in the general election. None of that stuff is happening. So it's hard to get your voice out. So can you speak a little bit about that and the unfairness of that?
No, it's definitely been difficult. I mean, those that ran or wanted to run for the Democrats and Republicans, they were allowed to start campaigning. I don't even know. I think it was as early as November of last year. We weren't allowed to begin petitioning. I believe it was mid-May, and we didn't know whether I would even be on the ballot, if the petitions were approved until June.
Yeah.
So that delayed us a lot. But I mean, we're not allowed to be on the in the debate unless we get $150,000 in donations. So unless
Say that again. That's incredible. Go ahead.
So the donation threshold to be part of the mayoral debate is about $150,000.
Okay.
And unless we pander to the rich or we are rich, then basically we can. We're not rich, and we also don't want to pander to the rich. We're getting our donations from everyday working class people.
Wow.
So we will be out there protesting, and I'll be tweeting my responses to it. But definitely the mainstream media has been
they shunned y'all.
Yeah, they haven't been showing us any even people news reporters from mainstream media who I had done multiple interviews about local issues before, they were like, oh yeah, we can't, they were silent. I told them, I'm like, oh, I'm running for mayor now. These are this is our political platform.
Wow.
These are the people that are endorsing us. This is our website. This is a real campaign, and they're not. But, we at the end of the day, what we really think is important is for the most amount of New Yorkers to be exposed to our political platform.
Exactly.
So much so that whoever wins, they themselves fight for the laws that we wanted to pass, for the vision that we had for New York City. Because more important than one politician
that we have. Don't say had, you lost. You're still in the race. Have. I got you. I got you, sis.
Thank you.
I'm gentle with that, but yes.
Yes.
Okay.
You're right. Thank you. So I think that more important than any politician is really the power of the people. So I think that we really want to let people know, at the end of the day, regardless of who wins, what's going to be the most important is whether New Yorkers unite to make a New York that works for working class people or not.
Wow.
Well, I just want to say, I know Eric Adams, I guess, is the prohibited favorite, and folks in NYCHA, a lot of folks probably voted for him. And I really, truly believe, although he's been extremely evasive, but I believe he's for the privatization of NYCHA. I know he's very close friends with Donovan Richards, who's also for the privatization of NYCHA. So you are a choice, and I think the NYCHA residents should no, don't always vote against your own interests. You know, vote for the person who has policies that represent you.
Right.
And I don't think the current prohibited favorite does that, in my opinion.
Right. And I'm also a little fearful of how he's going to handle the police department. You know, I knew he was, when I was working, you know, as a civilian supervisor, and even before I got promoted as a civilian, I knew he was the head of 100 Black law enforcement. He was the president. And I remember who he was. I never got to meet him. I met him like recently at an event, but here nor there. But just the way he was, and now to see the power that he has gotten from being in the Senate, from being a borough president, you know, he's arrogant, you know, he's very arrogant, and I'm not sure how he's going to do to people. I know if he does get in, the streets are going to get full again. The people are going to be protesting. They're going to be a Gracie Mansion. But I want to segue into primary, right? Because I know Dr. Jessie Fields, they're, you know, Seeker, a lot of them are independents. She did something in Florida, and now in Florida, I believe they can vote in the primary, like, you know, for an independent. So I would hope, you know, I'm still a Democrat, but you never know, I might shift gears one day. And a lot of people, independents were, I guess some of the current ones were once Democrats, give or take, or something. But it is my hopes that we get to a place that when we have our primaries, that the independents are in it too. So that means it would be a Republican, one Democrat, and one independent. Because now in this race, you're still clawing with a couple of independents. You understand what I'm saying? So that's what makes it unfair too. So if they have, what do we have in here, right? If we have that, and then it'll be 3 people to vote for in the general election, 3 different, the independent, the Democrat, right? Wouldn't that make sense?
Oh, that would make sense. Like you're saying, like all the independents be like in one,
because they will be primaried with the regular, because we can't, right, the primaries. Right. So y'all can't even be in the primary. So that's the problem. So if they allow y'all to be in the primary, it cancels out. It's one person coming forward.
Right.
Then all the independents get behind that one person and then people,
same
like
thing.
they do the Democrats and the Republicans.
Yes.
And that makes it a fair system.
And you get covered with the press.
Exactly.
You know, because now it's like, if the press is not covering you, it's so difficult to get the message out. And I think that's by design.
Of course.
They really don't want
this
independent voice to be heard, you know, because it doesn't represent this 2-party broken system that we're dealing with.
But we have to fight for it. You know, like I said, I'm a Democrat, but I will fight. I'm a Democrat. I can't even talk now. I would fight for it because it's just the right thing to do.
Right.
And it just cancels out how many is running in this race, because when you think about it, there's split votes.
Right. And it would be a true demonstration of democracy.
Exactly.
Right? At the end of the day, we need to stop thinking of democracy as a 2-party system that say, like very similar things in different ways, or like, but their policies are, you know, not that drastically different. And we need to allow other people with other ideas, with other policies to engage in politics. So definitely, I think that if we want a democratic society, we need to really be supporting, you know, political elections with more than just 2-party candidates.
That
makes perfect sense to me. And I think that's the reason why a lot of people don't vote, you know, because you really look at it, they are the same. You know, they may have different titles, but, you know, de Blasio is a Democrat, but he's a privatization czar in his own right. And he's in the pockets of these developers, you know, so, I mean, what makes you any different than a Republican? You know, when you really get down to it, he's our enemy. So I'm not a Democrat no more. I used to formerly, I'm out, you know, because I've seen how it doesn't really represent our people. When I was going to run, I had to fully disclose I was with PSL. They were going to back my campaign when a whole lot of people would not.
Right.
You know, so-called progressive Democrats would not. So it's like, you know what? I mean, you say you want progress and be progressive, but you have that title over you. You really not really progressive at all in many ways. So I've experienced it. So I know it's challenging.
Yes.
You know, it's tough out there when you're trying to do something a little bit different.
How could people donate to your campaign?
So if people go to Rojas for Mayor, so that's Rojas, the number 4 mayor.nyc, and they click on the right hand like sidebar, there'll be a thing there that says donate, or they could follow me on Instagram. So that's Rojas number 4 mayor, or on Twitter, which is Rojas number 4 mayor 2020. 2021, that's what it is.
Okay.
And then I'll have like the links in bio and stuff to donate.
Awesome.
And we also have a fundraiser coming up.
Tell us about it.
Yeah, so we have a fundraiser coming up on September 11th. It's called Baila con Cathy. It's gonna be in Star Bar in Brooklyn, and it's a sliding scale donation between $10 and $20. So we wanted to make it as accessible as possible to working class people.
Nice.
Yeah, so while Eric Adams is meeting with people in the Hamptons, we just want to meet with y'all. So definitely come out, party with us. We're going to have a DJ, drinks, food. It's going to be a good time.
Yeah, he even went to see the president. Go figure. I don't even know why we're talking about it. Why did he even do that? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's how arrogant.
Well, it's all posturing, you know. He's
but why?
Well,
you're not in yet. Go see him if you're in. You're not even in yet.
I'm from Brooklyn, you know, so we've been dealing with Eric Adams for a while, you know. So, you know, as a Brooklynite, you know, I live in Queens, but I'm born and raised in Brooklyn, Bed-Stuy. You know, there's a lot of concerns, you know, for people that know him personally, you know, for over these years.
Right.
And,
does he live here? Does he live in Jersey? Right.
I'm going to say again, I'm from Brooklyn. A lot of folks have not seen Eric Adams walking down the streets of Brooklyn.
So where does he live at, right?
If he lived in Bed-Stuy,
they would see him.
Somebody in Bed-Stuy that I know, neighbors that I know, would say, well, we saw Eric Adams go to the store. I mean, I don't hear that talk. So, you know, I mean, I'm just saying like it is.
Cray.
I really don't think he lives in Brooklyn. He shouldn't be allowed. He shouldn't be allowed to really run if that's the case. He's over there in Jersey.
Call him out, Stan.
He's over there in Jersey.
Call him out, Stan.
Let's call it like it is. He does not live in. He don't live in no Brooklyn. He don't.
He said like one day in an interview that he had to wear like a bulletproof vest to go out in the community or something. I'm like,
and he want to carry a gun. Man. And he wants to carry a gun. You know,
that's a joke.
He's scary. He's scary. Yeah. What you want to say, Mike, before we wind this up? And speak it to the mic, brother. Speak into the mic.
Come on,
I want to say that. I love her so bad.
You love her? So you can vote for her then, right?
I am. Yes,
I am.
Because to be honest, I ain't even have to ask no questions. She already answered everything.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
So you're definitely on the ballot.
Yes, I'm on the ballot.
Good.
NYCHA resident support. Eric Adams is not. He's not a candidate that represents the interests of those in NYCHA. So here's an opportunity to vote for somebody that I believe does represent.
We have options.
We have options. Don't just vote because you're Democrat for the person that's a Democrat. Look at their policies.
Yeah. All right, y'all. So any closing remarks before we wind down you want to say to the viewership? And we'll thank you after that.
Register to vote, but you know, I'll be on the ballot November 2nd under Cathy Rojas. Is gonna say socialism and lib because they didn't allow us to write the whole party for socialism. Nice. So definitely come out and vote. At the end of the day, what we want to do is show that, you know, that New Yorkers are really thinking outside of the box, that we're not going to settle for the same old. We're not going to settle for the same privatization, for the, you know, for defending the interests of the rich while we're breaking our backs, and that we need something new. So definitely go out to vote. Okay. Very intelligent. Any final remarks from you? A very intelligent candidate here.
Vote for the policies. Don't vote for also. Just vote for the policies. Vote your best interests. And you have a candidate here that I think represents the interests of working class people and those in NYCHA. So use your power to vote for those who are representing you. Any closing remarks? Put the camera on you, brother. And speak into the mic with that voice. Yeah, he's all soft. He's all like I say all the time. I just want everybody to subscribe to our page, One NYCHA TV on YouTube, and make sure that you share and follow. Okay. Click like and subscribe. Yeah, I'll close us out. So it was a pleasure to have you. Yeah, a lot of information, and I know people can follow you. And yeah, this is going to be exciting. I mean, you're giving people options, and that's what it's about. You know, when I reached out to your team, and I was like, you know, we got to get her on. That's why I covered it. You know, because I needed people to have options. Right. So we don't think it's just because I know none of us are voting for the other guy, that Republican. But with that said, I see, well, whatever his name is, I'm not even gonna give him no energy on here. But the other guy that we were talking about, you know, I don't want people to think it's just about him. There's other options, and you are a very viable option. And hopefully people will follow you. Your social media, follow you throughout the city. You know, you're going to make your rounds and, you know, donate to her campaign. She gave it to you. We'll put it in the chat later.
And let's get her to $150,000 so she can be in the debates too.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
yeah. All right. So one night to one people. Thank you all of our viewership for watching. We're signing off. Listen up. One night to one people. Come on, let's do it.
All right.